All right, everybody, welcome to Math with Grace. Today we're going to be working through Math 7, Book 706, Lessons 1 through 5. Lesson 1 begins on page 2, and it's titled Bisecting an Angle. It says here to bisect an angle or a line segment, you divide it into two congruent parts. Remember, congruent means equal parts. If you're using a compass, a protractor, you would simply figure out how large your angle is to begin with, right? Setting your center on the vertex and your 0 line on the baseline, and we would see that this angle is 70 degrees. So to split that in half, we would come down here to 35, and that's how we would split it. But we can also split it in half using our compass, and that's what we are going to learn how to do today. All right, so let's start down here with number 1 in the bottom of the page. To bisect an angle with your compass, you're going to set your compass at a relatively small but workable size. Okay, this is just about half, a little bit less than half of this angle that's down here. I'm going to put my pin on the vertex, which is labeled letter I. Kind of poke it in there. And then I'm going to draw my swoop, right? We're getting good at these swoops, right? And the swoop is going to cross both of the outer edges of my angle. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend my compass, maybe, let's say about this large, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my pin at each point in turn where my swoop crosses the edge of the side of my angle. So first I'm going to put a pin here, and then I'm just going to make a small swoop out here in space around what I would assume would be about the middle. Then I'm going to switch my pin without changing my compass, and I'm going to put the pin in over here where the swoop crossed that side of my angle, okay? And then I'm going to make another swoop out there where the middle should be. And what I've done is now I have my X marks the spot. So I can take my straight edge, and from the vertex I, I'm going to go through my X marks the spot, and I have successfully taken one angle and created two equal angles. Okay, now for the next problems up here on the top of page 3, they want us to use our protractor to draw the angles, then use a compass and a straight edge to bisect each one. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go through and we're going to draw each of them, and then we'll come back and bisect them all at once. I mean, one at a time, of course, but you know what I'm saying. Divide and conquer, so to speak. All right, so work line. Remember, our work line is always where we begin. Okay, so here is my work line. Here will be my vertex, my work point, my starting point, right? I want a 30-degree angle. I'm going to put the center point of my protractor on the vertex that I chose, and then I'm going to line up my 0 line with my work line. Starting at 0, 10, 20, 30, 30-degree angle goes to here. And I will finish that off with my straight edge, as such. All right, for this 90-degree angle, I still need a work line. Remember, when we're working with 90-degree angles, we usually want our work point, our starting point, our vertex to be near the center. I'm going to line up my protractor point, my center point there. My work line is on my 0 line, and then I'm going to come up here to the 90-degree mark and make a 90-degree angle. When you're working on these, if you go into the words, it's fine. Don't worry about it, okay? This is a skills and steps that you will be using all the way through geometry, even a little bit in Algebra 2, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. Not so much, but at least through geometry. So practicing this is good. going into the words or off the page, or off the sides a little bit, don't worry about it. They don't exactly give you a ton of extra space. So for a 100-degree angle, remember this is 90 degrees, so 100 degrees is going to drop back this way. So I like to move my point, maybe not to the middle, but definitely over quite a bit. I mean, the middle would probably work too. So setting my protractor on the middle point, lining up here, putting my 0 line on my work line, and counting up to 100 puts me over here. And this is why I say that these small ones work great for this book, because even the small one, I'm going off the edges here into the wordings, right? If you're using a big protractor, because that's what you have, and that's totally cool, it's going to be even farther off. Although if you're using one of those big metal ones that has an opening in the center, you could always mark the inside instead of the outside to save a little bit of space. All right, 100 degrees, and then they want 110. So like we've been doing, work line first. We're going to pick my point. I'll pick it way over here this time, lining up my point, my vertex, with the center of my protractor and my 0 line on the outer edge. Counting from 0 to 110 leads me over here. And then making the line. All right, so that part's done. Protractor can be set aside. All of my angles are made. Now I need to bisect them, okay? So remember, to start our bisection, we're going to shrink our compass down to a usable but pretty small space, right? This is the width of my finger here. I'm going to put my pin on the vertex, and I'm going to make a swoop. And like I said, we're doing all of these, so I'm just going to go and make a swoop on each one, right? Let's just be concise. So I'm going to put my pin here, poke it in a little bit, and oops, see, I didn't poke it in enough. Poke it in a little bit, and swoop. Move down here to 3A. I'm going to poke it in, and I'm going to swoop. And then the final one here, I'm going to poke it in, and I will swoop. All right, so all my initial swoops are done. We're going to extend our compass to, it's like about that long. My pin now, remember, is going to go 2 times. We're going to make 2 different marks. I'm going to start, I usually start on the bottom one where my swoop touches the bottom of the angle, and I'm going to make a mark. And then I'm going to go where my swoop touches the top of the angle, and I'm going to make a mark. All right. This is a very tight X, but you can still see where my X marks the spot. I want to go right through the center of that. So I'm going to start at my vertex, set up my straight edge, which keeps shaving off a little piece of my pencil, and I'm going to go right through it. Okay. All right. Part B, same thing. Now I didn't change the compass because it's at a good distance. So I'm going to put my pin on the bottom where my swoop crosses the bottom of my angle, and I'm going to put a swoop out here, somewhere that I know the middle is about going to be, right? Then I'm going to move my pin to where it crosses the other side, and I'm going to make another swoop, okay? If for some reason you're doing this and your swoops don't cross each other, maybe your distance isn't big enough, but also you can always just go back if you don't change the compass, and just redo one side or the other. So starting at my vertex, I'm going to go through my X marks the spot, and I've bisected my 90-degree angle. Now, 90 degrees divided by 2 tells me each of these are 45-degree angles. Just something to keep in mind as to what you're breaking these down to, right? So a 100-degree angle broken into 2 parts will both be 50 degrees, right? Okay, 100-degree angle. Pin where my swoop crosses my work line. Making a mark. I make them kind of big because better to mark it big than miss my cross, right? Then I'm going to move my pin to the other side of my swoop where it crosses the angle. And I'm going to make my second mark. X marks the spot. Take my pencil at the vertex, through my X marks the spot, and I have bisected this angle. 2 exact pieces, 2 equal pieces. Okay, last one. Putting my pin where my swoop crosses the bottom line, making a mark. Moving my pin without changing my compass, right? We've left the compass the same this whole time doing each one of these. So I'm going to move my pin up here and make the second part of my X marks the spot. You can see as the angle has gotten larger, because we went from smallest to largest, my X marks the spot has gotten wider. Right here it was kind of tight, but now it's widening up. It's just how it goes. All right, from my vertex through my X marks the spot gives me my bisected angle. Okay, so we've been working on measuring angles and creating congruent angles, right? And now we are bisecting them. To bisect the angle, we're going to start with a really small space, right? I said it was the width of my finger. And we make a swoop going across both sides of the angle. From that point, we're going to expand our compass. This one is like the length of my knuckle here. And then we're going to put our point where our swoop crosses each side of our angle and make a mark. So you're going to make 2 marks. When those marks cross, that's our X marks the spot. We go from the vertex through our X marks the spot, and we've bisected that angle. All right, great job. Go ahead and finish the We Remember for lesson 1 and meet me back here when you're ready for lesson 2. Lesson 2 begins on page 7, and it's titled Multiplying Positive and Negative Integers. Now they go through a big spiel here, but we aren't going to worry about that right now. What I want you to know, if when we multiply, we have different signs, then the answer is going to be negative. So if you're multiplying a positive number times a negative number, it is going to equal a negative answer. If you are multiplying a negative number times a positive number, it is going to equal a negative answer. If you're multiplying and they have different signs, one is positive, one is negative, in whatever order, because it doesn't matter, your answer is going to be negative. So as a reminder, it makes no difference whether the negative sign is the first or the second number. The answer is going to be the same. It's going to be a negative number. So different signs, negative number. Okay, same signs, positive number. We'll talk more about that in a lesson coming up because we're going to deal with that in a moment. But let's take a look at what we have here. So for problem number 1, we have a positive times a positive. Same signs. I might as well write it out since I wrote out the other ones. If you multiply a positive times a positive, it's going to be a positive answer. If you multiply a negative times a negative, it's going to be a positive answer. Okay? Same signs, positive answer. Different signs, negative answer. These are both positive, so the answer is going to be positive. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 3, both positive, answer is going to be positive, 6. 2 times 2, 4. I'm not going to do a whole bunch of these with you, but I do want to do some of these negative ones, right? So let's take a look at number 3. 2 times negative 2. I know they have the parentheses here. It's kind of redundant. Let's not worry about that right now. 2 times a negative 2. These are different signs. Positive 2 times a negative. Positive times a negative. Different signs, negative answer. So this is going to be a negative, whatever 2 times 2 is, right? And 2 times 2 is 4. So the answer is negative 4. 2 times a negative 3. Positive times a negative tells me my answer is going to be negative. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times a negative 4. Positive times a negative, my answer is going to be negative. 2 times 4 is 8. Okay? Let's look down here at 4C. 4C, we have 1/3 times a negative 2/3. Positive times a negative, my answer is going to be negative. We multiply numerator times the numerator and denominator times denominator. So 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 3 is 9. Negative 2/9. Okay? And the same thing for these decimals, right? Negative 1.1 times 4 is a negative number. It's a negative times a positive. Different signs, negative answer. 1.1, sorry. Sometimes my hands work faster than my mouth. Okay, 1.1 times 4 is 4.4. So negative 4.14, because it's a negative 1 times 1, 1.1 times 4, negative 4.4. Okay, so to review, different signs when we're multiplying, different signs, negative answer. Same signs, positive answer. We'll get more into this in maybe the next lesson or the one after that. I don't remember exactly, but it's definitely coming up in this video. All right? Go ahead and finish the rest of these. Finish the We Remember. Meet me back here when you're ready for lesson 3. Lesson 3 begins on page 12, and it's multiplying two negative integers. So again, we just did lesson 2. Same principle is going on here, okay? And so they have this set up here to show you a pattern that's happening. But it says when we multiply two negative numbers, the answer is always positive. Same signs, positive answer, okay? A positive times a positive is positive. A negative times a negative is a positive answer. When we have different signs, we have a negative answer. Okay, just like I wrote out in the last one, same thing. Here it is, just in a green box. Okay, same signs, positive. Different signs, negative. All right, so let's do some of them. I'm not going to do them all again. Multiplying is good practice, but let's take a look at some of these, right? 1a, negative 2 times 4. It's a negative times a positive. My answer is going to be negative. 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, negative 2 times 3. Negative times a positive, my answer is going to be negative, and 2 times 3 is 6. Negative 2 times positive 2. Different signs, negative answer, 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, the multiplying part is the same. Let's look at number 3. Negative 2 times negative 2. Now we have same signs. They have the same signs. My answer is going to be positive. If you need to write a plus sign here, then do it. But the answer is going to be positive. 2 times 2, which is 4. Negative 2 times negative 3. Same signs, positive answer. 2 times 3 is 6. Negative 2 times a negative 4. Okay? This is literally the opposite of what we did up here, right? Negative 2 times a negative 4. Same signs, positive answer. 2 times 4 is 8. All right, let's look at some of these down here. I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to do them all. You guys can work on these, practicing these. It's a same signs, okay? Same signs, positive answer, different signs, negative. This green box, same signs, positive, different signs, negative, okay? Review this if you need to. Okay, let's take a look at 6C. We have negative 8/9 times negative 3/4. Same signs, my answer is going to be positive. Now, if you want to rewrite this so that you can see them closer together, so you can cancel, because this can be canceled, right? There are factors. Remember, when we cancel a top number with a bottom number, right? And 9 and 3 and 8 and 4 have factors in common. 9 and 3 have a factor of 3 in common. There is 1 3 in 3, and there are 3 3s in 9. Okay? 9 divided by 3 is 3. 8 and 4 have a factor of 4 in common. 4 divided by 4 is 1. There's 1 4 and 4, and there are 2 4s in 8. Now we can actually multiply across. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 1 is 3. Same sign, positive answer. Okay? This is kind of a practicing our fractions and our new multiplying rule for positive and negative. Okay? Same sign, positive answer. What about part B? Negative 4 times a positive 6. Different signs, negative answer. 4 times 6 is 24. Let's do one more here. Let's take a look at 4A. Let's say negative 8 times negative 7. Same signs, positive answer. Okay? 8 times 7 is how much? 56. Okay? All right, I'm going to let you finish the rest of these because it's just practice. I think we've done enough examples. The rule is right here for you to review and double check as you go. Go ahead and finish those. Finish the we remember. And meet me back here when you're ready for lesson 4. Lesson 4 begins at the bottom of page 16, and it's titled The Cost of Installment Buying. And you might be thinking, what does that even mean? It means that you are paying a little bit up front and then you're making monthly payments, right? Monthly payments. People do it all the time, right? There are things in life that are very expensive and we don't always have the money to pay for them all at once. Now, is it best to save and be able to pay for things all at once if you can? Absolutely. But it's not always feasible for that to happen. It lists some things here. Appliances, furniture, vehicles, houses, right? Your house. People make payments on their house, a mortgage payment, right? That's an installment payment. That's what we're talking about here. And when you make these payments, you pay a finance fee. Now, when we're talking about houses, the finance fees can be kind of hard to figure out because they do a lot of very advanced math to figure those out. But for this lesson, we're going to be sticking with some basic things. And so we need to take a look at these definitions that are here at the top of page 17. All right. So an installment is one of the equal payments to pay off a debt. The down payment is a part of the full price paid at the time of purchase. You pay it at the beginning. Then you pay the rest later. The finance charge is a charge added to the amount you're paying after your down payment. And then they have an extra word here called impulse buying. And an impulse buy is just a spur of the moment thing that you buy just off an impulse, right? It's like, oh, I want that, and you buy it without really considering the cost. Now, for small things, maybe that's no big deal. You're in the checkout line and you see a candy bar and you decide to buy it. That's considered an impulse buy. That's why they put the candy bars there. But hopefully we're not making impulse buying that is going to give us debt, credit card debt, or buying cars on impulse, or furniture, or electronics, or whatever. All right, let's take a look at the example here. It says a recliner costs $459.99. On the installment plan, the customer pays $59.99 down, so that's his down payment, and $55 per month for 10 months. What is the cost of the recliner on the installment plan? Now, when you're purchasing these things, if you take a minute to do the math, you can see what it's actually going to cost you, because if you are buying on installment payments, you are going to pay more than the original price because of the interest. Okay, so the customer for 10 months is paying $55. All right, already 10 times 55 is more than this couch is originally worth, right? So number of payments times $55. But then you also need to add that you originally paid almost $60 down. So then you need to add the down payment to figure out that you will be paying in total $609.99. That's how much you're going to be paying for this recliner over your 10-month period. So the question is this recliner really worth $609.99? Is it really worth that much? Maybe you think, oh, this is a good deal, $459, but is this still a good deal? Because this is what you're actually paying for that chair. All right. To figure out how much more this is than the original price, you would just simply subtract the original price from there to figure out you're paying $150 in extra fees and extra charges. Is it worth $150 extra to purchase this thing? That's kind of what we have to think about when we're making purchases. And I know it's a lot to think about in the moment, but taking that few minutes to just work through a bit of the math real quick will really help put things into perspective. Okay, let's take a look at the example we have here on page 17. Or not the example, but problem number 1. A client who was having difficulty paying his bills called Fawn Hill Accounting to ask for counsel. Victor asked to see a list of his debts and discovered that the client was making payments on a bedroom suite, bedroom furniture. A suite means he got dressers and a bed frame and a nightstand, probably, a bunch of different parts of his bedroom furniture. And it costs $1,266.70. The client had bought the suite with a $100 down payment and the promise to make 24 payments of $60 each. The question is, what was the total the client would pay for the bedroom suite on the installment plan? Okay. He's making 24 payments of $60 each. So 24 times 60. Okay, 24 payments times $60 each. Grab our old handy dandy here. And 24 payments times 60 tells me he's paying $1,440. But remember, he also paid $100 down, so plus another $100. So he's going to pay in total $1,540 for the furniture with the finance charges, right? So what was the cost of the finance charge? Well, for that, we're going to take $1,540 and subtract $1,266.70. All right. So let me add my 100 to this since it's already on there. So 1,540 minus 1,266.70 equals, he is paying a total of $273.30. Okay, $273.30 to buy this furniture. Okay. Is the furniture worth $1,540? I don't know. That's something that, what's his name? Victor would have to decide, right? But it's important to know what this number is going to be, okay? Now, like I said, when it comes to houses, it's a little bit harder because that's a lot for someone to try to save up, the value of a house. And so we end up taking mortgages, and we always want to find the best deal, but you're going to pay more. But when it comes to furniture or appliances or a car, even sometimes, it really is better if you can wait, if you can, I mean, there's a lot of circumstances, right? If you can wait, it is better to try to save up the total, because that's a lot, $273.30. That's a lot to pay extra for this furniture, just so that you can get it right now instead of later. All right. Okay. So the definitions are here if you need to review what the different parts are. But remember, our payment value, so he's paying $60 for 24 months. We multiply those two together to say he's paying this much in those 24 months. Plus the down payment that he made is the total amount that he's paying for that furniture. If we subtract the original price of the furniture, then we will find out what the finance charge is. All right? That's it for lesson 4. Go ahead and finish the We Remember, and then you'll be ready to take quiz 1, which is at the back of the book. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me. Otherwise, until next time.